Hunting or Bust, The Journey Onward by Master Atlan, Chapter 1, Volume 1, Your Ultimatum. In a small business town in the country of Vale, there was a building where a very important piece of business was being discussed, and on top of a building of similar size just across the street from it, there were two figures standing on the roof, looking down at their target. There it is. I'll give the Dust Company credit. It was a pretty good idea to conduct a transfer like this somewhere no one would expect people to come and raid it. A cocky smirk grew on the whiskered teen's face. Too bad that word travels fast towards us. Do you really think this is a good idea? The other man asked while leaning on a crate on the roof. I mean, we get told to steal some dust every now and then, but this seems like a pretty big take. The risk is high if we get caught. There's a reason Wilsko has a special team of people chosen to steal from the Dust Company. But the cut is awesome if we make it, the blonde said with a cheer in his voice as he tried to persuade his friend. This man was a tall boy, 17 years of age. He had 3 thin black lines across each cheek, and his canine teeth were slightly more pronounced than most people. He had a light blue long-sleeved undershirt with an orange vest over it, and black pants with orange stripes running down the seams, leading to a pair of black boots. Strapped to his tailbone was a small pack of items, and attached alongside the center of his back was a red scabbard with a hook at the end of its hilt. He had little strands of blonde hair peeking out from underneath the blue bandana he tied over his head. Naruto, I think you're purposely ignoring the part about the guard, security, and the chance of us landing somewhere behind bars. The other man was a young, handsome teen standing at about the same height as his blonde cohort. He had ebony hair with bangs that lowered down to his chin. He had on a gray shirt and blue pants with tennis shoes that would better accompany him with mobility and escape. Attached to his right hip was a white scabbard with 2 forends on its side and a small trigger device between them. Sasuke, stop being so pessimistic, man. Naruto jumped up and threw an arm over his partner in crime's shoulder. Think about it. These dust clump things are the biggest source of unrefined, untapped dust crystals in Remnant. We swipe them up, move them, send them through the right guys, and we get a serious dent in the debt. Hell, it might be enough to wipe the whole thing. What could possibly go wrong? Sasuke looked at him with a dry glare and shook his head. You seriously didn't just tempt fate by saying that, did you? Fate, mate, you're making it worse. All that matters is the hard work we put into it. Yeah, well, it doesn't really look like you're going to put that much work into it. Sasuke leaned back and patiently unsheathed the sword on Naruto's back with a raised eyebrow. You only brought Stormer with you. Hey! Naruto stepped forward and pulled his sword back into its sheath before gently petting it like a pet. He responded, Yeah, of course I only brought Stormer. Bringing Gatlin would be overkill. I only take those babies out for the real important jobs. And this doesn't consist as an important job. Why? Look, Naruto jumped up on the ledge of the roof and pulled his blade out from behind his back. He spun it in his hand with an experienced move before smirking back at his friend. It's us. We can handle anything thrown our way. Sasuke just looked up from his position before hanging his head and sighing. He grasped the scabbard and pulled out his sword before stepping up on the ledge as well. He looked over at Naruto. If this goes belly up, I'm blaming you. As you rightfully should. The 2 teens jumped down from the building and lowered themselves to the street. They maneuvered through the shadows and climbed the side of another building before making their way to the roof of the target. Sasuke held his sword against the window on the roof and carefully ran the tip in a circle until it cut clean through. The sliced up window almost fell to the floor a dozen feet down, but Naruto grabbed it and pulled it out of the way. Naruto ran his fingers over his sword out and gripped it, anticipating. You ready? Sasuke cleared the way. You first. Naruto jumped down from the roof and landed in a crouch before he prepared for battle. Rah! Hey, what happened? There were a dozen guards laying unconscious on the floor. In the center of the room were several men dressed in black suits packing up the shipments of dust and dust crystals and large crates to be hauled in 2 separate vans, and the dust clumps were being stored in suitcases and handcuffed to the robber's wrist. The 8 men looked up to see the 2 teens standing in the center of the room. Sasuke blinked. Hey, someone else had the same idea. Naruto was far less amused at the revelation. Hey, you assholes, that's our score! Drop it! The robbers looked between each other after the blonde's exclamation. 5 of them pulled out large collapsible red blades, and the large 3 pulled out submachine guns. Sasuke and Naruto reacted and dove behind a couple of steel barrels while the men started laying fire. The 2 thieves ducked their heads while bullets riddled the steel in space just above their head. Sasuke covered his ears and yelled, Regretting not bringing the rest of your weapons? Naruto yelled back, Thinking about it. Sasuke used his sword to get a look at the men attacking them. He watched as 3 men got into one van and started it up. One of the vans is moving. What? They're getting away with all the dust! Sasuke ducked down as a bullet nearly went through his head. He looked towards the ducked blonde. What's the plan now? Naruto thought for a moment before a light bulb blinked over his head before being immediately destroyed by a stray bullet. Naruto sat up a little. Okay, you stay here and take care of the rest of these guys, and make sure that the van doesn't escape here without you being behind the wheel. I'll chase after the guys that are already running. Okay, solid plan. Sasuke nodded before a second passed. What's your plan for dodging the bullets? Pfft, you know bullets can't hurt me. Naruto looked off to the side. Well, I mean not for very long at least. I still suggest we try to stop them shooting for a moment so you can run. Then let's try this. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's scabbard and cocked the forehand closer to the bottom, uncovering a small compartment that opened up to reveal a double-barreled shotgun. Naruto pointed it at the wall and fired off a round, shooting a powerful blast and nearly destroying the whole wall. The robbers stopped for a moment and all faced towards the wall where they had heard the loud bang. Naruto flipped out from behind the barrels and jumped over the heads of the robbers. He landed in a crouch before making a mad dash after the van that had rounded the corner. While the crooks were still surprised by Naruto's sudden departure, Sasuke vaulted over the barrel with one hand on the edge of it. He spun on his knees and tossed the steel barrel at the group of thugs, knocking them all away and on their butts. While one of the gunners tried to lift himself up again, Sasuke stepped on his gun before kicking him across the face and knocking him out. Sasuke pulled the scabbard out from the strap around his hip and used it as a secondary weapon to block a sword coming down on him. The black-haired thief thrusted his scabbard into the man's hand and spun the blade out of his grip, disarming him. Sasuke kicked him in the stomach before using an extra punch to kick him across the face and block a second sword strike. Sasuke landed on his feet and raised his scabbard to block another blade before they started crossing weapons. Sasuke handled both men expertly with his Fullman reflection in his left hand and the shotgun scabbard in his right. The men were completely dumbfounded while they were held back by the teen's skilled moves. Sasuke punched the blade off his scabbard, spun his blade in his hand, and turned on his feet, cut one thug with the dull edge of his sword, turned around again and brought the hilt down on the hand of their last remaining swordsman. Disarmed, the robber could only watch as Sasuke flipped through the air and planted both his feet into the man's face. With all visible enemies defeated, Sasuke landed on his feet, sheathed his sword again, and for good measure, he cocked the forend that was closer to the hilt of his blade. Don't move! Sasuke opened his eye and looked back at the fifth and last remaining guy of the group, nervously shaking while holding a submachine gun in his hand. He motioned towards the floor. Put the sword, gun, scary weapon thing on the ground besides you right now. Sasuke blinked before he slowly started to comply. He switched the hand carrying his sheathed weapon and held it so the hilt was facing towards the armed robber. Sasuke slowly knelt down and started placing it on the floor before pulling the trigger and firing the sword at the robber at the speed of a bullet. The hilt slammed into the gun, struck the thug in the center of his sternum, blew him off his feet, and landed him a little space on the floor for him to rest unconsciously. Sasuke looked around at his handiwork before shrugging. That actually went better than I thought it would. And as if fate was finally catching up, Sasuke heard the sounds of multiple guns behind him. Hunting. This is not going as well as I thought it would. Naruto yelled to himself as he jumped over a dumpster and used the lamppost to make a sharp turn and a corner, sprinting after the van for nearly an entire minute now. Naruto finally caught sight of the white vehicle before it turned another corner. Naruto remembered the layout of the surrounding area and realized that the van would have to pass by 2 more buildings before being able to get on the freeway. The blonde thief sprinted across the street and through an alley before he caught sight of the fire escape just above his head. With amazing agility, Naruto jumped from platform to platform until he climbed his way up to the roof. He peered over the edge and watched the white van swerve around the corner and come down the road directly underneath him. He took a step back, prepared himself for the impact with a deep breath, and jumped right over the ledge. The 3 robbers looked at their haul and checked if they were being followed. The one in the back yelled at the 2 in the front seats. What happened? Who were those kids? We didn't plan for this. We should brought more knockout gas. The one driving just fearfully shook his head. Oh man, Mr. Tushwick is not going to be happy about this. Where's the rest of them? I don't see the other van. Both of you calm down, the guy in the passenger seat said as he gripped the suitcase closely to his chest. We'll drop the dust off in a safe place, go back to the warehouse, and make sure that... Thump! Ow! The roof of the van indented when Naruto's full weight landed squarely in the center. He rubbed his head before realizing he had landed on his target and laughed. Sweet! Shh! The tip of a red blade popped out right in front of him after stepping through the roof. Naruto leaned back as one of the robbers started shooting upwards. Naruto knocked on the roof. "Hey, that's dangerous! Keep doing that and..." Naruto looked down to see another sword that had just barely missed severing his crotch by at least 2 inches. He clicked his teeth and grabbed the sword on his back. "Enough of this!" He started repeatedly stabbing the roof of the car. "Stop stabbing at me!" The van started to swerve and ram into the surrounding walls and buildings along the street. Naruto's meddling distracted the robbers and made them miss the turn into the freeway. The blonde struggled to keep his balance and held on tight to the sword stabbed into the van so that he didn't fall off. He realized that the thugs were ramming into the wall to try and knock him off, so he prepared for a new course of action. He reached into his small pack and pulled out a thin piece of steel wire. He looped it through the hook of the end of Stormer's hilt and used it to rappel as he jumped onto the side of the van. When Naruto tried to grab the wheel of the van, the side door slid open and one of the thugs pulled out his red blade. Naruto let out a quick yelp before moving his feet and legs to dodge the sword from cutting into them. When one of the man's wings was a bit too wide, Naruto pinned his wrist to the side of the van with his foot. With just a bit more pressure, the man flinched in pain and dropped his sword into the street. Naruto then proceeded to unleash a quick flurry of kicks to the man's stomach, sternum, cheek, hip, stomach, and chin before he fell back unconscious. Naruto then tried to reach for the handle of the front door, but barely dodged bullets piercing through the window. One of them scraped along his cheek and left a bloody gash before Naruto got fed up and punched the driver in anger. "Prick!" And after his little outburst, Naruto and the thug in the passenger seat realized that the driver was unconscious and no one was left to steer the van. They looked between each other and then looked forward to see the oncoming lamppost and wall. Naruto rolled on the wire in his hand and dislodged his blade just in time to jump off and roll in the streets. The van broke through the lamppost and slammed into the wall, luckily losing most of its momentum from crashing into the street lamp. Naruto lifted himself up and looked down to see a bloody gash running up the inside of his right arm and soon some skin hanging off what remained of his left knee. He hissed and covered his arm. "All things considered, this is pretty light to walk away from." Naruto saw his blade Stormer lying on the sidewalk with the wire still around his palm. He pushed himself up on his feet and started making his way towards the van to take back the item he was asked to procure. But he heard one of the doors being kicked open and could see the gun-toting thug stumbling around the crashed van with the suitcase held under his arm. He aimed his submachine gun at the blonde. "Stop right there!" Naruto rose one hand in the air. "Easy, man. Your nerves are a little shot after the crash. You need to calm down and watch how you handle that thing. We were just supposed to take the dust to Mr. Torchwick. This was supposed to be a quick in and out kind of job." He motioned towards the wrecked van and the 2 groaning thugs inside it. This is not in and out." "Yeah, believe me, dude. Things never really go the way you plan them." The thug took a moment to look the blonde teen over and noticed the bloodied right sleeve and left knee. He thought this was his best chance to escape. "You're injured too, so you can't stop us anymore. So here's what you're gonna do. Turn around, limp away, and never mention this to anyone ever again." "That sounds like a fair plan." Naruto nodded with a slight tilt in his head. "But the thing is, there's a flaw in your logic." Naruto ducked and swiftly pulled on the wire in his hand, pulling Stormer off the sidewalk and directly into his palm. He spun the blade so the hilt was facing forward and twisted the handle so the bottom opened up, shooting out a small flat-tip arrow that impacted against the thug's chest and blew him into the side of the van. Naruto spun his sword in his hand and stood back up before looking at his injuries, smirking at the sight of his now healed flesh. I take game-breaking injuries like a champ." The defeated thug groaned on the floor while clutching his chest, feeling like a truck just slammed squarely in his sternum. Naruto sympathized with the man while walking by his side. "Yeah, I know, Shades. It hurts like a bitch, but you shouldn't have gotten between me and my mark." Naruto broke the handcuffs and pried the suitcase open to reveal a solid, raw red dust clump. He smirked and gently pulled the massive crystal out of the suitcase before smirking and holding it level with his face. "We win." And then the sounds of dozens of tires screeching and guns cocking reached his ears. He lowered the crystal out of his view and saw there were dozens of cop cars, armed cops, and SWAT van, and a bullhead surrounding him. We have you surrounded. Put the dust and sword on the ground, and then put your hands in the air." Naruto was absolutely speechless. Usually he had a snarky comment, quip, or joke to make, but he was just so surprised by the sudden appearance of law enforcement that he couldn't say anything. In the corner of his eye, Naruto spotted Sasuke sitting in the back of a cop car. The black-haired teen was slowly shaking his head, telegraphing that their luck had finally run out and it was better not to fight it. Naruto nervously waved. "Hey officers, I didn't see you there, but I caught these guys." Naruto pointed to the thugs in the van. "So, no problem there. Oh, I found this too." Naruto pointed to the dust in his hand. "Yeah, it looks kinda important, so I thought it would be better to keep it safe with the rest of the stuff before you guys came." "Do I get a reward?" "Hunting." Thump, 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 thump. Nope. 10 minutes of solid head slamming against a metal table, and Naruto could safely say this was not just a bad dream. The whiskered blonde just rested his head on the metal table in the middle of the interrogation room in a police station. His eyes immediately locked on to the one-way mirror encompassing an entire section of the wall. This was not how it was supposed to end. He didn't really know how it was going to end, but being arrested and locked up was not his preferred last freedom. He always had a gut feeling that told him that if he kept going down this path, that it was going to end up like this, but he never believed it. They only ever did jobs like this to pay back their debt and feed themselves. They never hurt anyone, or at least when they did, they knocked them out quick and easy, so when they woke up, all they had was a bad headache, and he doubted there was going to be anyone to speak on his behalf. He was out of contact with his dad. He hadn't seen his mom in ages, and even if she did try to help him, it would probably end in carnage. No friends, amigos, forced acquaintances. The only guy that Naruto had a real friendship with was probably in another room being questioned. "Oh man, Sasuke's gonna be pissed with me when he sees me again. I can already hear it now." Naruto cleared his throat before putting a little nasally tone in his voice. "Naruto, I told you this job was going to be too dangerous. Hey, it's not my fault some goons from some little backwater gang got the same idea as us. I just know we were gonna get in some serious trouble with Wilsk if we didn't deliver. Well, that's what happens when you agree to work with a sociopath, and now you're under arrest and going to jail. I hope it was worth it. You know, Sasuke, in case you haven't noticed yet, you got arrested too, so you should just can the stuck-up asshole treatment and stop lecturing me." After a moment, Naruto had a smug look on his face before winning the argument with himself. Luckily for him, someone walked through the door and halted his slow descent into madness. The man that walked in was middle-aged, well-dressed gentleman with unruly gray hair and shaded glasses. He was wearing a black suit, a black vest, a green undershirt, and a dark green scarf. He was carrying a scroll underneath his armpit and a mug of coffee and a cane in his hand. Naruto blinked in confusion at the sight of the man. He didn't look like any policeman or detective he had ever seen before. The gray-haired man walked over to the empty seat across from Naruto and sat down. He placed his coffee mug on the table and started flipping through the information on the scroll. "Naruto Uzumaki, age 17, Sasuke Uchiha, age 17, apprehended at two sites where a large quantity of dust was being stolen and transported, one in a warehouse owned by the Shinee Dust Company, another several blocks down the street in a van that crashed into the wall. From the items taken off your person, we have a scroll, a small belt pack containing at least 100 feet of steel wire and smoke bombs, and one very sharp blade not usually found on a normal petty thief." Naruto lifted one foot to place on the table and motioned to his now shoeless feet. "Was it really necessary to take my boots too? Was it really necessary to keep knives concealed in the heels of both boots?" Touche. Under most circumstances, it would be written that you two were just passing by before you tried to take the dust and make off with it to sell for a good profit. But after finishing the robbers' treatment before arresting them, they said you two were there to steal the dust for yourselves. You then proceeded to defeat 8 armed thugs by yourselves before the local law enforcement came on the scene. Also, the older man brought up another file on the scroll. "We have reports that 2 criminals matching your descriptions have been spotted in surrounding areas committing grand theft auto and minor accounts of larceny. With assumptions like this and the testimonies of the robbers, there could be a full-out investigation on both of your involvements in this case." Naruto had a scowl on his face while the calm gentleman continued to read off his scroll and summed the 2 teenagers' situation up nicely. He asked with some venom in his voice, "So why don't you just arrest us if you have so much faith in the evidence?" "Because I'm far more interested." The man started swiping over the screen and pulled up a video before showing it to the bandana-wearing teen. "In this, The video started playing and it showed Naruto flipping over cars, up buildings, maneuvering around the van for the best point to attack, and beating the last robber with the weapon hidden in his hilt of his blade. Naruto was confused and raised an eyebrow. "How the hell did you get all that footage?" The man had a small smile. "You'd be surprised how much cameras can capture when a van starts swerving around madly in the middle of a street." He laid the scroll on the table as he continued to play the footage. "Now, there's no record of you having any formal training with any school, military group, contractor, or militia in the database. Where did you learn to do this?" Naruto kept his lips sealed tight. "Well then, I'd like to know more about what that weapon of yours. It's very well maintained, sharp, sturdy, and practical for more than one use, as you showed in that little demonstration of yours. And also, capable of firing these off rather spectacularly." The man pulled out an evidence bag and showed it to the boy, revealing a small collapsible arrow with a flat tip that Naruto had fired off after the crash. He examined it closely. "Pressurized, high-impact, concussive point arrows, strong, devastating, and in the hand of an expert that knows where to correctly fire them. Let's say in the center of the chest. They can be non-lethal but still pack quite a punch, and we found 50 of them compacted into your hilt with a device that shoots them one at a time by row." He placed the bag next to the scroll and leaned back in his chair. "They don't sell swords that fire off rounds like that in most weapons shops. You made this, correct? But not at one of the training academies, I'm guessing. Okay, it's becoming clear to me that you're hinting at something, and I'm gonna guess you ain't a cop." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" The man sat before and grabbed his coffee mug. "Just for clarity, do you know who I am?" Naruto shook his head. The middle-aged man nodded. "My name is Ospen." Naruto's eyes slowly started to widen before they almost looked like dinner plates. He sat up a little. "Ospen, as in Professor Ospen, headmaster of Beacon Academy, Ospen." "Oh, that's good. At least you know who I am." He raised his mug. "That saves us a little exposition." "No, actually, I could use a little exposition." Naruto looked over the older man in confusion. "Like what the hell is a guy like you doing questioning some kid in a police station?" Osman finished sipping from his mug and looked at the young blonde. "I have made many friends and connections throughout Remnant in my time. Some I can request information from if I so need it. Enough information that I know a good deal about both you and your friend Sasuke Uchiha." "Pfft," Naruto scoffed and crossed his arms. "You don't know anything." Naruto's eyes widened. "Oh God, you know everything." Osman just nodded his head. He leaned forward. "I know enough. I know the basic outlines of both of your histories, and considering what I know, not only are you able to work together, but that you are actually friends, I am most impressed." "Then, if you know our backgrounds," Naruto inquired, "why are you here?" "Because one of the acts I can't stand most in the world is watching people with talents such as yours go to waste like this. This world is at peace, but at a moment's notice that could change for the worse. So, when I find two very capable young men using their skills so recklessly like this, I take notice, and I don't wish to waste any opportunity to change that." Osman looked at the young man. "I would like for you and Mr. Uchiha to come and join the next arrival of students for the new year at Beacon Academy. It's given Mr. Uchiha the same offer I'm giving you right now." Naruto was shocked. Actually, the best term might have been gobsmacked. This had to be a dream. Beacon was the dream school of any kid that wanted to become a huntsman or huntress, someone who could change the world. Those stories and hero tales he had heard about as a kid, those guys came from Beacon. Naruto blinked before reality started to play. Are you sure you would want two criminals in your school? Wouldn't we be bad for all the actual heroes? And I don't have any of the education needed to enter a prestigious school like that." "It's a school, Mr. Uzumaki. Its primary function is to help you learn what you need to know." He shrugged his shoulders. "To be fair, there may be a learning curve that will be difficult to overcome, but not impossible. And while you might be mischievous, I wouldn't go so far to say to call you criminals." Naruto frowned his brow and seriously contemplated the consequences of what this decision could do. "We may think differently, and you may be able to think of different solutions than I, but from my point of view, you have three choices ahead of you." Osman looked into his coffee mug. 1. You accept my offer, try to overcome the odds, and hope for something good to come out of it. 2. Get locked up for any crimes you may have committed, serve your time, hope for parole, and pray you never meet some of the real bad guys in there. Or 3. Try to knock me out, escape from this station without any weapons or footgear, and stay on the run for the rest of your life hoping you never get caught? Preferably, I'd try to stay away from number 3. He lowered his mug and looked into the whiskered boy's conflicted blue eyes. I can't promise you a future, Mr. Uzumaki. I can't even promise you that I know which choice would be better for you. But I implore you, make a decision that would benefit you and your future. Naruto blinked and leaned back in his chair. Hunting. The intercom rang. Students, we will soon be arriving in the city of Vale, and we will be docking at Beacon Academy soon after. Naruto had his arms thrown over the railing and was hanging off it like a rag doll as he looked out the window at the beautiful landscape instead of his normal jumpy self. The blonde felt rather confused about what was going to happen next. And geez, you look like you just had all your teeth pulled out with a toothpick and a rusty spoon, Sasuke said as he walked up and leaned against the railing beside the blonde. What's wrong? I don't know. I mean, getting a chance to attend Beacon is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but this feels weird. He looked up at the black-haired boy. Does this feel weird? A little, Sasuke agreed with a minor shrug before looking out the window. But getting a chance in Beacon? I don't think there's anything in the world better than that. Plus, I think anything is better than working on the streets for criminal bosses and gangs to get a quick buck. Naruto was silent for a moment. That Osman guy knew who we were. At least he said he kinda did. What if he's trying to get leverage over something? What should we do if this goes south? Sasuke thought about that possibility and shook his head. We won't let it. A television broadcast about an orange-haired criminal and a faunist protest gone wrong turned to static before the image of a pretty blonde woman in a white suit, black skirt, and cape appeared for everyone around them. She greeted them. Hello, and welcome to Beacon. Naruto asked, Who's that? My name is Glinda Goodwitch. Oh, Glinda continued, all of you here are a prestigious few that have proven that you are ready for the next step by attending our academy. This is a time of peace and of tranquility that we must not escape. So we hope to put our future into the hands of capable huntsmen and huntresses such as yourselves. The future road may be hard and perilous, but we have faith that you may not only find strength in yourself, but others as well. And until that time has come, we will do whatever is possible to provide you with the knowledge and skills needed. We eagerly await your arrival, and welcome to Beacon. The hologram disappeared and some of the students started talking between each other. Naruto chuckled. Geez, if that doesn't put a weight on your shoulders, nothing will. It probably won't be so bad, Sasuke countered. There's probably a few people that have it worse off than others. Like who? Oh god, I can't. They looked over to see a boy their age with scruffy blonde hair cover his mouth and step away from the window. He stumbled and desperately made a run for a garbage can. Sasuke pointed towards the barfing young man. Him, for example. Fair point. We're going to be landing soon. Be prepared. Sasuke patted Naruto's shoulder before walking off to look out a different window. Naruto just stared out as the city of Vale appeared underneath them and Beacon Academy appeared just in their sights. Here we go. The second chance. A whole new life. Oh, gross. It got on your shoes. Gross, gross, gross. Ew, Yang, no. Get away. Keep your barf-covered shoes away from me. I need your cape. I gotta wipe it off. Ew, no. You aren't using my cape to wipe off your nasty shoes. I'd like my cape as is. I'm your sister. My barf-covered sister. Yep. A whole new life. End of chapter 1.